Hey book besties, welcome back or welcome if you're new. My name is Cayenne and this is Cayenne is Booked. It's taken me a minute to get this up because I'm just really upset with my April wrap up. And I know 17 books isn't anything to like turn your nose up at, and it's still 17 more books than I'd read previously. Yeah, I hear what everybody's trying to say to me, but at the same time, like, I'm just bummed out because I had bigger plans for April, but then my job and life and, you know, the spiralies kind of got in the way. So we didn't really live up to what I wanted to. And now that I've gotten past that, I'm ready to film this and I'm ready to kind of talk about the books that I did read. I wouldn't say this is my best reading month ever either. So I think that's also a reason why I'm kind of struggling, because I did read some really great books, but also too at the same time, like, I don't know, they're not the best. Anyways, we will start off with something that is super positive because I obviously posted my On Wednesdays We Read Pink episode number 4 for April, and I read 2 fabulous books in this. I read Love Letter to Serial Killer by Tasha Correll, and then I read Last Guard by Nalini Singh. And if you've been here for a little bit, you know I'm a Nalini Singh stan, and this is my favorite book of the month. So I'm definitely really, really excited that I got the opportunity to dive back into the side-changing world, that I got to read another one of Nalini's amazing works, and definitely was worth it. So if you want like my in-depth thoughts on either of these books and me yapping about them, because I really did have a great time, I will link my vlog over here so that you can hop on over. Definitely, like, I don't know if it's one of my top in the spinoff series, because like Silver definitely still has that top slot because I adore her. But Silver adjacent family members, so definitely up there in the list. So that's these. Next up, I read Space for Love by Emily Antoinette. This was the good, the bad, the smutty book club pick that Jess and I did for the month of April, Alien April, if you will. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. If you're interested on in-depth thoughts and all that good stuff, I will, as always, link in the description box our Instagram page where you are welcome to watch the 40-minute long conversation that we had about it, because I don't know, it's just really nice to read another alien romance. I love alien romances, so really loved it. I think that is it for like the vloggy vlogs. Oh, and then I reread Powerless by Nora Roberts because I'm trying to finish up the trilogy with the new book Fearless coming out, if I remember correctly. It's a reread for me, so I'm not gonna like go back in depth of everything. I once again gave it 4 stars. However, this time I listened to it on audio versus reading it physically. And I do feel like the audiobook gives like kind of a better experience, especially like the different dynamics, and really just kind of brought it to life a little bit more for me in this round. So I would definitely say that I did enjoy the audiobook and that reading experience as well. So I'll definitely be able to report back how I'm feeling about book 2 and book 3. My goal is to have that in my May wrap up. So we'll see if the mood leads us there. All right, so we'll go ahead and start out with my requisite J.D. Robb books that I read for the month. So Abandoned in Death by J.D. Robb, I gave this book 4 stars. It is a reread for me. I have yet to make it to the ones that are not a reread, but we're getting there. So this one follows Eve as she is looking for a serial killer, and he is abducting women like of the same profile and disposing of them in the same manner and dressing them up. It's a very specific look. It's a very specific time period. It's so funny too, because they're like, ugh, this is such like a late 90s look. Like, it's not in fashion anymore. And it's because this is set in like 2063, I believe, but it's as somebody who's like a 90s baby, I'm just like, wow, I don't like the tone that y'all are using. But I did really enjoy, as always, watching Eve kind of match wit for wit when it comes to like really big cases. The really hard part about this one was like the number of families that were affected and the number of lives that like were definitely upended by this very like this specific person making the decisions that they were making. Now, obviously break in consciousness, obviously a psychotic break, obviously there's a lot more pain and everything that kind of goes into it as well. But you know, this is an adult that as a child hurt very badly and did not make very positive decisions on this side of things. So I'm in no way defending it, but it was definitely a hard read because you kind of like really got the insight into him and what he was thinking. And it was just really sad that he made the decisions that he made. And that's all I'm gonna say. Then I reread Desperation in Death. And this is a 5-star the first time I read it. It is a 5-star again. This one is so like, it's arguably one of my favorites in the series. It is not the favorite because that one has still not been upended as my favorite in the series. But this one definitely ranks up there because it is so character driven. It is so Eve and Rorik coded. It is a well thought out, well put together, brilliant plot line that involves human trafficking and kidnapping across almost all the states at this point in time, and this very intricate web of training young women to become slaves to whoever's willing to buy them, essentially. And it's a lucky break that 2 of the girls ended up being able to escape, and one of them ended up being able to survive that escape. And it's crazy too because like one of the girls was a runaway because she should have been put in foster care, but the system failed her. And the other girl was, you know, like 16, on the soccer team, went to a private school, was walking home from school, didn't make it home, had a brother, had 2 parents that loved her. And it was like every walk of life was like represented in this. And it was horrific when you got to the other end of things and you realized like what was happening and what these girls and these boys were going through and like how big the network really was, because this was a very intricate, very in-depth network that was happening in this book. And I don't want to say too much because I can't remember what is and isn't a spoiler, and I don't want to ruin the reading experience for like new readers, because I will till like the very last book in the series, and even not then, like I will continue to talk about how much I love the series and how much I love these characters. And it really was a series where you saw the entire ensemble cast rally around Eve and what she's trying to do and support her in like any way that they can. And, you know, you see Rorik trying to support her, but also to like understanding that like she has to go to the mat for these girls because like they need her. And it was just a really beautiful story and I really love it. And once again, like giving it 5 stars, and I highly recommend it. Like I do for this entire series, I definitely recommend the audiobooks. Susan Erickson does an amazing job, and everybody has a very distinct voice, so you don't really get lost in the sauce when it comes to all the characters, which is kind of hard to do sometimes when you're listening on audio. All right, so next up, I'm a part of Jess from Peace Love Books Patreon, and each month we read a Nora Roberts book. So I have March and April's in this because I didn't get to March in time, but I still wanted to read it because I want to be able to say I read all the books this year. So in March we read Legacy, and this follows Adrian and Raylan. It obviously follows a lot of other characters, but I kind of want to keep it just like central to like who our main character is. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This is definitely one of her romantic suspense. Is set in a small town. She originally lives at like a very young age. She lives in New York City with her mom, but her mom's not really like, she loves Adrian and she provides for her, but she's not really like the nurturing type. So she would spend a lot of time with her grandparents, and grown-up Adrian has built like a fitness industry around herself. Like she does a bunch of really like cool workouts, and she has her own like clothing and la la la, like, you know, the fitness influencers. There I am. Okay, I'm back on track, right? And Raylan and her grew up together in a small town where the grandparents live, and Raylan's mom worked for the grandparents at the pizza shop, and she's always kind of had a crush on him, but he, you know, met the love of his life. And they got married and they had 2 beautiful children, and she passes in a pretty horrific accident. And I'm not going to talk about it because it hits a little too close to home for me. But it's definitely why this book like wasn't a 5 star for me, because I was just like, oh, okay. And I just wasn't expecting the reason why she passed away. So anyways, fast forward, they both moved back home. One because Adrian's grandmother's died and she's coming to move back to live with her grandfather. And two, she just like loves a small town, like wants to live there, like is willing to uproot her entire life, leave New York City, etc. And then Raylan's moving back because his mom and sister live there and he has two kids and he needs to be able to raise them and etc. etc. So like, you know, they make the connection. And this is really also too following Adrian in the romantic suspense sense, in the sense that she is being and has been like receiving threatening letters for years upon years upon years upon years. But then like now bodies are starting to drop and then more letters are starting to come in. So like they're starting to realize like this isn't just like an over eccentric fan, like this could be something more. So I enjoyed it. I physically read this one, so I don't really have too much to say about the audio, obviously. But I did enjoy it. And, you know, another really solid romantic suspense to chat about when it comes to Nora Roberts. Then for the month of April, we read The Collector, and this is kind of like really more up my speed, and had it not like kind of dragged a little bit in the middle, like this would have been a solid 5-star for me, but I felt how long the book was, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't like yanked into the story enough to like ignore the fact that it could have probably been like 100 pages less, but I'm not the writer, I'm not the editor, I'm not the publisher, right? So this follows Lila and Ashton, and Lila is a like house sitter, and so she goes and she moves into people's houses, takes care of their houses when they're like long vacations, dogs, etc., house plants, all that kind of stuff, right? And like this is her job. She doesn't really have like her own place. She has a storage unit that houses like all of her things, but like she literally just moves from like one address to another address. She's also a writer. Like she has published one book and is working on the second one, or she published 1 and 2 and is working on the third. I can't quite remember like the timing of everything, but obviously being a house sitter like really works out for her because she can go sit, write, kind of go on her own schedule, and then obviously get paid to live there. So she was minding other people's business like she likes to do, because she likes to like create these stories in her head about like what people are doing. And she like is watching the across just like the way neighbors and like the high rises. And she watches the man be like essentially like throw the woman out of the window, and she falls to her death, obviously. And then she sees the man like essentially himself. And so she calls and she reports it, this whole big thing. And as she's leaving the police station, she meets Ashton, who is the man who is being accused of the crime. He's being accused of that. And so he's like, no, my brother, like, he's a lot of things, but like, killer's not one of them. And she's like, oh, well, like, you know, I can walk you through it, blah, blah, blah. So they start to build this relationship, and then they realize that there's more that meets the eye, because the brother was brokering a deal of this antique that is like really sought after, and he tried to up the stakes and like ask for more money, and the buyer got upset. So it's a very convoluted web. And at the end of the day, like, we don't really believe that it was a murder-esque situation, that it really was like they were murdered, period. So I definitely enjoyed this one. Like I said, it dragged kind of a little bit there before we got to like the big reveal and like the big like fight scene at the end. And I really just was like, okay, so that's the only reason why. Other than that, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I love the fact that we were in the city setting, like all those things. I just like 100 pages less, that's all. All right, next up I read Finley Donovan Rolls the Dice. And I know a lot of people like aren't really keeping up with the story anymore because they feel like it's, I don't know if it's like not realistic, but like it almost feels kind of like outlandish. And I think that's what I like so much about it. So this one follows Vero and Finley as they go to Atlantic City for a girls' weekend. But really they're trying to like save Javi, who is Vero's man, and pay back the mob bosses that they accidentally owe from a previous book. And I don't want to spoil like why they do and all that kind of stuff. But then Steven, her ex-husband, and then her mom and the kids end up going. And so it becomes this like whole big situation. And Nick, her now fleeing who's a police officer, shows up, and they're trying to run around and like find the mob bosses and handle everything and look for Javi and et cetera, et cetera. But like Nick's stalking them, Steven's throwing a fit about the kids. But so there's this it's absolute chaos, and I listened to it on audio, and I just had a really great time with it. Like, I don't take it too seriously, which is, I think, why I still really enjoy the world. And yeah, I just had a really great time, and I just found myself kind of like giggling. And I love Nick, and it will absolutely devastate me if he's not in game for Finley, because I feel like the ending of this book really puts them on a very positive standing with each other, and I hope it stays. Okay, yeah. All right, so next up, I read Captured, Bound, and Released, which is the trilogy for the Highgate Preparatory Academy by Rosalie. So this follows Lily. So Lily is transferred from London to America to the Highgate Preparatory Academy after the death of her mother, and she's misplaced and put into an all-boy dorm, which probably is our fantasy at this point in time. But anyways, so she rooms with Ash, Kai, Jax, and Loki. And this is a solid 4-star series for me. It is a dark romance series, and they are in college, from my understanding, or like about to be in college. And they are all going to be taking over very like high stakes businesses, and they've been doing like the wet work or their dirty work for their dads for a very long time, and we're just like down with the dads. We don't really like any of them. And so this is kind of the story of how does Lily play into all of it, and then how does her mom come into it as well, because as we slowly start to figure out, like, there's more that meets the eye here, and this like really random uncle who came to like save the day when she didn't have anywhere to go, but she doesn't know he existed. Suspicious. So I really enjoyed this. I liked Lily a lot. Like, I felt like she was a very strong character, and I felt like she definitely held her own when it came to the guys, but it was also kind of really nice for all of them. They're trauma bonded for sure, but for all of them to kind of like heal together, I really did like that aspect of the story as well. All right, so then I read Twisted Heathens and Sacrificial Sinners, and the first 2 books, this is a trilogy, and I haven't gone back and read the third one. I don't know why. Can't tell you why. Not because I wasn't having a good time, but probably just got distracted by work and then just picked something else up. Like, I'm bad at that sometimes. So this is 4 stars for me so far. So both books got 4 stars. It starts with Twisted Heathens, and this follows Brooklyn, and she's locked up in a psych ward, and she's offered this position and this ability to be able to move to another psych ward where she can essentially earn her freedom, which she was probably going to have a life sentence in the one that she's currently in. So like, she agrees, and she's like, yeah, like, I'll move, it's fine, like, I'll go, especially if it's going to give me the opportunity to potentially like not have to live my entire life out in this place. But obviously there's a little bit more than meets the eye there, because there's a lot of experimental situations happening at the new place, and that's all I can reasonably say, because like I said, I'm in book 2 right now, so I can't remember what is and isn't a spoiler at this point, but she does meet up with 4 gentlemen, and they kind of all have their own trauma and their own types of situations. Some of them are battling addictions, some of them are leaning into the addictions to avoid kind of everything else. So they all start to form a relationship. The guys are already like essentially a family, and then like Brooklyn kind of like starts to get her way in there. And one of them is a second chance though, so that one was kind of cool to see. But I definitely think that it is a good trilogy, and I do plan on going back and finishing it. Maybe that'll be a summer project for me, but really enjoyed it. And then we're going to wrap up this one with The Birthday List by Devaney Perry. I finished it. So this follows Poppy and Cole. And this is a story of Poppy trying to move on with her life after her husband was murdered. And Cole is the police officer at the time who is the one who notifies her. And then this is years down the road, and they kind of like reconnect. And he's a detective now. And this is kind of the story of how he helps Poppy work through the birthday list, which is written by her husband. So like different things that he wanted to do before he hit like certain birthdays. And her plan is as she does each of these things, like she thinks about her husband, how he would have reacted to it, you know, like kind of thinks about it like joyfully, and then is able to slowly like let go or work through some of that grief that she's carrying. And it's a beautiful story, but it's also a sad story. Like I felt myself like it was hard because of like her grief, and it was hard because like you wanted her to move on and you wanted her to be happy with Cole, but you understood that that meant she was leaving behind like the only man she had ever loved and the only like real relationship she had ever been in, and that's a little bit more difficult than most people realize. So I really like I loved the story. I loved their relationship, and I think the biggest thing and my biggest takeaway from this book, and why it is 5 stars for me and why it definitely will hold like a special place in my heart, is how understanding Cole was, and how it didn't matter if she was crying for her dead husband. It didn't matter if like grief just suddenly overwhelmed her, or he was always there to just sit with her, to care for her, to have a conversation with her, to go and do something crazy to get her mind off of it, to hold her while she cried. And he never pushed too hard, even though he knew he had strong feelings from her, like from the very beginning. So I really loved the fact that like he never made her feel like she had to rush. And he was always there, even in situations where she felt like she was being unfair to him. So I really liked that dynamic, and I really loved that story between the two of them. And I really liked how Cole kind of let Poppy go through all of this grief and get to the other side of things, and loved her through it, and then loved her obviously after it. So I really liked this. I'm going to have a full... what do you call it? This is going to be one of my series vlogs that is coming out. I'm hoping to finish up the other 2 books and the other 2 books in the series. So probably like June or July. But this is the original cover for it, and it is signed. Sometimes she'll pop up original covers that like aren't in print anymore, like randomly on her website. So if you like to collect like OG covers and things like that, you could definitely keep an eye out. So that's it, friends. That's all 17 books that we read in April. So like I said, not a bad month, just not my best month. We'll see what happens in May, but thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, drop a butterfly emoji. I don't know, we're doing, what do you call it, life cycles at school with the kids right now, and we have a caterpillar that's about to turn into a butterfly that we're gonna let go before the end of school. So butterfly sounds beautiful. Thank you so much. If you haven't had opportunity to subscribe yet, I would love to have you as part of my book bestie community. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.